All right, here we've got our third video of 9.4. Now, in this one, you're actually going to learn how to graph these functions. So you've already learned how to find the amplitude and the period and some of the key points. For graphing these, what you're going to need is you're going to need to find 5 key points to your function that's going to allow you to draw your complete cycle, your period. There's actually some steps that you need to go through to graph this. So let's follow these steps first. Now, you're going to notice we've introduced a couple other transformations here. So we already know that A and B are the vertical and horizontal shifts, and A and B also help us find our amplitude and period. H and K are going to be your horizontal and vertical translations. So those are going to be your shifts up and down. So if we look, remember x minus h, that's all. So H and K are going to be your horizontal and vertical translations. So that's shifting your graph. H is going to be shifting it left and right, and K is going to be shifting your graph up and down. Okay, so here's what we need to do to graph any function in this format. First thing you need to do is identify the amplitude and the period. So again, amplitude you get from your A value, period is 2 pi over B. Your horizontal shift is going to be H. Now remember, because it's x minus H, you're going to be taking the opposite sign. So if it was x minus 2, that would be a shift 2 to the right. K is going to be your vertical shift, so that's shifting up and down. First thing you want to do is whatever your K value is, that's going to be the midline of the graph. So the first step is to find out what your midline is and draw. You're going to be finding your 5 key points for either the sine or cosine. And those 5 key points are going to be your minimum, your maximum, and then your starting point, your ending point, and your midpoint. Okay, so they're going to be different for the sine and cosine, but let's go ahead and look first at the sine wave. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is let's go ahead and let's look at this graph right here. So we've got an A value of 2, a B value of 4, and a K value of 3. Okay, so you've got A value of 2, B value of 4, and K value of 3. So that's going to help you get set up. So what we know right here is we know that our amplitude is going to be 2 because our A value is 2, so amplitude is 2. Our period is going to be pi over 2. So what that means is our entire wave, our entire graph is going to be compressed into pi over 2 length. So this is going to be a horizontal shrink right here. Next, what we want to do, we don't have a horizontal shift. We're not subtracting or adding anything from x. And our vertical shift is 3. So that's going to be our midline of our graph, of our wave. Okay, so at y equals 3, that's going to be our midline. So we're going to go ahead and have a midline that we draw. And we next need to find 5 key points. Now, remember, if we go back to Desmos and we look at our sine function right here, the 5 key points that you need for your sine function are the starting point, the ending point, and the midpoint, which are your 3 x-intercepts, and your maximum and minimum, maximum and the minimum. So those are the 5 that we're going to find. Now, when you go here, if we look at this graph right here, 2 sine 4x plus 3, we've compressed this down into a small period of pi over 2. So remember, to find the 5 key points, the first ones we need are the x-intercepts. Now, these are the x-intercepts, but remember, when we're shifting our graph up or down, they're not actually going to be the x-intercepts. They're going to be the 3 points that our graph crosses the midline. So what we're going to do is, if you remember, our 3 key points are at the start of our period, the end of our period, and the midpoint of our period. Okay, so start, half point, and midpoint. Or start, end, and midpoint. So what we need to do, we get our starting point is at, normally it'd be at 0, 0, but because we're shifting, our second point is halfway through our cycle. Now, in this case, because our cycle is pi over 2, halfway through that would be pi over 4. That's how we get our midpoint through the period. We take 1/2 times our period. So it's going to be at pi over 4, and it's not at the x-axis because we're adding 3. So our second key point is going to be pi over 4 and 3. Okay, this is halfway through our cycle and along our midpoint. Our last one is going to be at the end of our period. So our last point is just going to be at pi over 2, so at our period, and then again we shifted up 3. So these right here are the 3 key points on our midline. It's going to be 0, 3, pi over 4, 3, and pi over 2, 3. Now the other 2 points are the minimum and maximum. Now if you remember, the minimum and maximum are the 1/4 of the way along is our maximum, and 3/4 of the way along is our minimum. So if we go back, our maximum is at 1/4 times our period, which gives us pi over 8. And then again, our maximum, instead of normally having we have an amplitude of 2, but we're shifting it up 3. So our max point is at 1/4 times our period, and then our amplitude plus our shift. So at pi over 8 and 5. Our minimum is going to be at 3/4 of our period. So 3/4 times pi over 2 gives us 3 pi over 8. And then our minimum is at -2, but again, because we're shifting up 3, we're going to be at 3 pi over 8 plus 1. So what I want to do is I'm going to show you what this graph looks like in Desmos. See, here we've got it right here. We've shifted, we've gone up 3, and then our period goes from halfway through our period is pi over 4 and 3, and then our maximum points are at 1/4 of the period, and then 2 plus 3 gives us 5, and then our minimum is at 3/4 of our period, and then -2 plus 3 gives us 1. Okay, so if we were going to go look in Desmos, here's what this graph looks like in Desmos. We've got 2 sine 4x and then plus 3. So if we go ahead and graph that, look what we've got here. We've got, here's our parent function right here. You see that our period has been shrunk down horizontally, but then stretched vertically. Okay, so we've got quite a bit going on here. So this is how you graph it. Again, you find your 5 key points right here, and then you just connect them with a smooth curve. So when you're graphing these in class, you're going to be focusing on just getting one nice cycle graphed. So the key, finding your 3 points along the middle, and then finding your maximum, which is 1/4 of the way, and your minimum, which is 3/4 of the way. Okay, again, this is a lot of stuff. You're probably going to have to go back and watch this again, just a couple times to make sure you're getting all the notes down. What I want you guys to do is to identify the 5 key points of this graph. 3 sine of 2x plus 5. I want the 5 key points. So list out those key points in the text box that pops up now.